criteria. How can we identify these non-current assets held for sale? Right here. When the carrying amount of this non-current asset, of a particular non-current asset, will be primarily, right, will be primarily recovered through a sales transaction, rather than continuous use, then this particular standard applies in such circumstances, rather than continuous use. When the carrying amount will be primarily recovered through a sales transaction rather than continuous use. I have, right, last week also I have touched on this. We have a machine, right, we have used for 1 or 2 years, and now, right, that machine may be outdated one, right, and then therefore we are not going to use that particular machine for further production of goods. We have manufactured goods using that particular machine, but now it is outdated. Industry machines therefore we are not going to use that particular machine to manufacture products, to manufacture goods. Then, right, still there is a carrying amount. Now this carrying amount we are not going to recover through continuous use. අපි අවුරුදු හිතන ගත්ත දවසේ අවුරුදු 5යි මේකේ useful life එක අවුරුද්දක් පාවිච්චි කරාට පස්සේ මේක outdated වුණා. දැන් මේකේ carrying amount එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒ carrying amount එක අපි recover කරගන්න යන්නේ මේක අපි පාවිච්චි තවදුරටත් පාවිච්චි කරලා නෙවෙයි. එහෙනම් කොහොමද? මේක විකුණලා දාලා. Right? By selling, through a sales transaction, we are going to recover the value of the asset. Then such are coming under non-current assets held for sale. When the carrying amount will be primarily recovered through a sales transaction. තවදුරටත් පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ ඒ asset එක විකුණන්න අපි බලාපොරොත්තුෙන් ඉන්නවා. If our intention is to sell, right? We have a machine and our intention is to sell that asset and earn and recover our carrying amount, not to continuously use that particular machine. If so, such we consider under this particular standard. Right? That is the classification criteria. And in order to identify a particular non-current asset as a non-current asset held for sale, non-current asset held for sale කියන category එකට ගන්න නම්, right, we should satisfy 5 conditions, 5 criteria. First one is that the asset, right, the asset, it can be an individual asset or it can be a group of asset, disposal group asset, or the disposal group should be available for sale in its present condition, should be available for sale in its present condition. Machine එකක් නම් modify කරලා නෙවෙයි, තියෙන තත්ත්වෙම විකුණන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්න ඕන. තියෙන තත්ත්වෙම විකුණන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්න ඕන. That is one condition that need to be met. One criteria. The second criteria, right, sale should be historically likely. Historically likely. විකුණ ගන්න පුළුවන් හැකියාවක් තියෙන්නත් ඕන. Right? ඒක තියෙන තත්ත්වෙන්න විකුණන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්න ඕන. විකුණ ගන්න හැකියාවක් තියෙන්නත් ඕන. Sale should be historically likely sale should be there. Right? There should be a likely sale. විකුණ ගන්න පුළුවන් කමකුත් තියෙන්න ඕන. හැකියාවක් තියෙන්න ඕන. Third criteria, management commitment should be there. Management commitment to sale. Management commitment to sale. ඔහේ මැෂින් එක දාලා තිබ්බොතින් හරියන්නේ නැහැ. ඔහේ නිකම් මැෂින් එක දාලා තිබ්බනම් අපිට බෑ ඒක non current asset held for sale කියලා අඳුන ගන්න. There should be a management commit from the management side. There should be evidence that they are committed to sell this asset. Right? ඒ asset එක sell කරන්න මොකක් හරි advertisement එකක් දාලා මොකක් හරි ඒ වගේ actions management එකෙන් අරගෙන තියෙන්න ඕන. Management commitment to sell should be there. The fourth criteria, change of the plan to sell should be change of the plan. Change of the plan to sell should be unlikely. Change of the plan to sell should be unlikely. අපි විකුණන්නත් පුළුවන් විකුණන්නේ නැති වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. එහෙම අර දෙගිඩියාවකින් ඒව බෑ. right? විකුණන්නත් වෙන්න පුළුවන් විකුණන්න නැති වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. එහෙම බෑ. intention to sell කියන එක තියෙන්නම ඕන. right? intention to sell කියන එක තියෙන්නම ඕන. අනිවාර්යෙන් අපි මේක විකුණනවමයි. right? මෙන්න මේ ගානට බය කෙනෙක් ආවොතින් definitely we are going to sell this. That intention should be there. right? Either sell or not to sell ඔය වගේ දෙපැත්තට වෙනි තියෙනව නම් මොකක් හරි asset එකක් සම්බන්ධයෙන් තීරණයක් then such also we cannot recognize as non-current assets held for sale. And the last criteria is that sale within 1 year. අපි මේක තවදුරටත් පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ මේක විකුණනවා කියලා ඩිසයිඩ් කරලා අවුරුද්දක් ඇතුළත ඒක විකුණන්න ඕන. right? විකුණන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්න ඕන. Sale within 1 year. So if it satisfy all these conditions, එකක් දෙකක් නෙවෙයි මේ පහම satisfy වෙනව නම් විතරයි අපිට ඒ වගේ asset එකක් non current asset held for sale කියලා recognize කරගන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්නේ. Still it is coming under non current assets. So non current assets are අතනින් ගැලවිලා non current assets machine කෙනෙක් PP එක ඇතුළේ තියෙන TP එකෙන් ගැලවිලා වෙනම අපිට non current asset held for sale කියලා යාලා disclose කරන්න පුළුවන්. And I have told you the difference, right? If we classify a particular non current asset as a non current asset held for sale, then we are not required to do any depreciation. Right? We need not to do any depreciation. Api PPE වලින් ගලවලා machine එක non current asset held for sale කියලා අඳුනගත්තොත් ඉතින් අපි ඒක තවදුරටත් මොකක් කරන්න ඕනේ නැද්ද? PPE එකේ තිබ්බනම් depreciate කරන්න ඕන. අතන තිබ්බොත් මොකක් කරන්න ඕනේ නැද්ද? depreciate කරන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. Right? So that is the classification criteria. So these five conditions need to be met in order to recognize a particular non-current asset as a non-current asset held for sale. Right? The asset or the disposal group should be available for sale in its present condition. Then තියෙන විදිහට machine එකම ගන්න. Machine එක දැන් තියෙන විදිහටම විකුණන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්න ඕන. Sale should be historically likely. There should be potential buyers. ගන්න ගැනුම්කරුවෝ right? ඉන්න ඕන. Then third one, management commitment to sell. Management should take certain actions in order to sell this asset. Management එක නිකන් බලන් හිටලා කියලා හරියන්නේ නැහැ. There should be a commitment from the management side, and that right, there should be evidence to prove that. Fourth one, change of the plan should be unlikely. there should be a clear intention to sell, either to sell or not to sell. Then the fourth condition is not met, right? The last one, sale within 1 year. The sale should be possible within 1 year. Within 1 year, right? අපි decide කළා අපි මේක විකුණනවා කියලා decide කළා අවුරුද්දක් ඇතුළත මේ machine එක විකුණන්න ඕන. The sales transaction should occur within 1 year. Right. Then if it satisfied, if a particular non-current asset satisfy all these 5 conditions, then we can recognize it in our financial statements as a non-current asset held for sale. After recognizing it, then we need to measure it. Measurement. 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 First, initial measurement. Initial measurement. Initial measurement. Right? Initial measurement. Here, when it comes to initial measurement, right, how we can measure it, how we can measure the value of the non-current asset. පොත්වලට දැන් අපි PP එකකින් ගලවලා දැන් machine එකම ගමු අපි machine කියන machine එකේ value එක දැන් තියෙන්නේ PPE වල. Property plant equipment යටතේ තමයි machine තියෙන්නේ. ඒක include වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. දැන් අපි එතනින් ගලවලා වෙනම අපි අඳුන ගන්න යන්නේ non-current asset held for sale කියලා. එතකොට ඒ අඳුන ගන්න වටිනාකම කීයක් වෙන්නව? Originally there is a value no. Under PPE, when we recognize property machines, there is the original value there, right, in our books of account. Now we are going to classify it under non-current asset held for sale. Then we should identify it at a particular amount. That amount should be, right, I write it here. That amount should be at lower of carrying amount, at lower of carrying amount and fair value less cost to sell, and fair value less cost to sell. PPE category එකක් විදිහට තියෙද්දි machine එකේ value එක 1000යි, right? And now the same machine we are going to recognize under a non-current asset held for sale. Then to determine this amount, we should know the carrying amount of this asset. Assume it is 1000, and also we should assess the fair value less cost to sell, right? The fair value less cost to sell may be 800. So we need to identify it at the initial measurement at 800. That is the idea. At lower of carrying amount and fair value less cost to sell. Yeah, PPE යටදී කොහොමද carrying amount එකනේ පෙන්නන්නේ අපි. Unless the subsequent measurement is done on fair value model, right? If we are using cost model for subsequent measurement in PPE, we show it at the carrying amount. Right? Then we need to compare this carrying amount with the fair value less cost to sell, and we need to consider whatever the lower as our initial measurement when it comes to non-current assets held for sale. Right? And if there is a difference, so now if there is a difference, මෙතන 1000ට තිබ්බ එක දැන් අපි 800ට තමයි මෙතනට අරන් එන්නේ. So what we need to do for this difference of 200, මේ difference එකට මොකද්ද කරන්නේ අපි? The difference, right? The difference we need to charge to PNA. Difference needs to charge to PNL. Difference එක PNL එකට අරන් යනවා. Hope it is clear for you, right? අපි ගාව machine කියලා asset එකක් තිබ්බා 1000ට. right? දැන් අපි මොකද කරන්න යන්නේ? මේක non current asset held for sale කියලා category එකට ගන්න හදන්නේ. එතකොට මොකද කරන්නේ? non current asset held for sale විදිහට අපිට අඳුර ගන්න පුළුවන් කීයද? මේ දෙකෙන් වඩා අඩු වගේ 800ට තමයි මේක අරන් එන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ කියන්නේ 800යි අපිට මෙතනින් transfer කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඉතුරු 200 මොකද්ද? මෙයා credit වෙලා කොහාට යනවද? PNL එකට යනවා. එතකොට machine කියලා PP වල මෙතන balance එකක් නැහැ. අපිට තියෙන්නේ මොකද්ද? මෙන්න මේ 800 විතරයි. This 200 will be debited to the PNL. Right. So that is how it happens at the initial measurement. Initial measurement. Subsequent measurement. Subsequent measurement. Subsequent measurement. මෙහෙම අතුනගත්තට පස්සේ ඉතුරු කාලවල කොහොමද අතුනගන්නේ? Right. Then we need to measure it at lower of original carrying amount. Lower of original carrying amount. Lower of original carrying amount and fair value less cost to sell. Lower of original carrying amount and fair value less cost to sell. So here, when it comes to subsequent measurement, if there is a loss, no issue, we can directly recognize it in our profit and loss. Subsequent measurement වලදී right මීටත් වඩා අගේ අඩු වුණොත් difference එක අපිට PNL එකට debit කරන්න පුළුවන්. We can charge it to the PNL. But if there is a gain එකක් තිබ්බොත් මොකද කරන්නේ? Right. Here you need to restrict the gain. Restrict the gain to previously identified loss. What you can see here. Previously identified loss. Gain එකක් આવුත් gain එක හිතන්න දැන් හරි මෙතන 800යි. අපි ඊළඟ පාර measure කරද්දී right ඊළඟ පාර measure කරද්දී this one you need to forget. Okay, I will take it with a separate example, right? Otherwise you will get confused. So remember, when it comes to subsequent measurement, again we need to measure it at lower of original carrying amount and fair value less cost to sell. Lower of original carrying amount and fair value less cost to sell. If there is a loss, we can charge it to PNL, and if there is a gain, then that gain should be restricted right, to the previously identified loss. අපි කලින් loss එකක් අඳුනගත්තා නම් ඊට වඩා වැඩි gain එකක් අපිට අඳුන ගන්න බෑ. ඒක restrict කරලා තියෙනවා standard එකේ. Right. Hope you have not done this. Then another key area. What if, right? What if that decision was reversed? Then අපි මොකක් හරි machine එකක් තියෙනවා. මේක අපේ intention එක sell කරන්න. So intention එක sell කරන්න අනිත් අර conditions පහම satisfy උනාට පස්සේ අපිට මේක පුළුවන් අඳුන ගන්න මොකක් විදියටද? We can then identify after satisfying all those 5 conditions which we have discussed previously, we can identify this machine as a non-current asset held for sale. But what if this decision was reversed? එහෙම වෙන්න පුළුවන් නේ. හරි. මේක විකුණනමයි කියලා හිතාගෙන ඉන්නවා. ෆෝන් එකක් ගන්න ෆෝන් එක විකුණනමයි කියලා හිතාගෙන ඉන්නවා. right විකුණන්න අපි ඇඩ්වර්ටයිස්මන්ට් එකක් දාලා යාළුවන්ටත් කියලා right කරන්න බලලා බය කෙනෙකුත් හොයාගෙන ඔක්කොම කරගෙන ඉඳි පස්සේ අපිට හිතන මොකද්ද නෑ මේකම තව ටික කාලයක් පාවිච්චි කරනවා. එතකොට decision එක මොකක් කරාද? reverse කරා. Same thing can happen in a business as well. Then how we need to account for that? දැන් මේ මම කතා කරන්නේ මොකද්ද? non-current asset held for sale කියලා අඳුනගත්තට පස්සේ අපේ decision එක වෙනස් වුණොත් දැන් අපි ආයේ ඒක කොතනට අරන් ඉන්න ඕනද? අර property plant and equipment යටතට අරන් එන්න ඕන. ඒ අරන් එන්නේ කොහොමද? right? Can you please mute your mic? Number 3. Discontinuing non-current asset held for sale classification. Discontinuing non-current asset held for sale classification. So here we need to remeasure at lower of carrying amount if the asset was never classified as non-current asset held for sale. time by එකත් උතින් හරි. මෙදා අපි තීරණය මෙදා තමයි අපි asset එක purchase කරන්නේ. We purchase the asset as at this date. Right? So after 1 year or 2 years, we may identify it as a non-current held for sale. And on this date, we decided to reverse our decision. Then carrying, assume it is 1,000. We have purchased this asset for 1,000. After 1 year, we have identified it as a non-current asset held for sale. Assume the loop's useful life is 10 years. Then what is the depreciation charge for the first year? That is 100. So the carrying amount here is 900. So if we identify it as a non-current asset held for sale, then we should compare what? Carrying amount with the fair value less cost to sell. Assume it is 850. Then as at this date, we identify it at 850. The difference we charge to PN. And again, after 1 year, let's say 6 months, after 6 months, we reverse this decision. Right? Then how can we pass this entry? මෙදා වෙනකන් කොහොමද පොත්වල පෙන්න තියෙන්නේ? non-current asset held for sale කියලා 850ක් තියෙනවා. Right? Now we are going to reverse this. So for that, first we need to determine carrying amount if the asset was never classified as non-current asset held for sale. මෙන්න මෙහෙම එකක් උනේ නැත්තම් මෙන්න මෙදා වෙද්දී carrying amount එක කීයද? What is the carrying amount? අවුරුද්දයි මාස 6ක් ගියාට පස්සේ carrying amount එක කීයද? මේක මම 820යි කියලා ගන්න. Otherwise you will get confused. 820. 820. So what is the carrying amount if the asset was never classified as non-current asset held for sale? We have used it for 1.5 years. So 1.5 years depreciation means 150. So the carrying amount if the asset was never classified as non-current asset held for sale is 850. And also we need to consider the recoverable amount. Recoverable amount. This one you know. මොකද්ද recoverable amount එක කියලා කියන්නේ? Recoverable amount කියලා කියන්නේ මොකක්ද? What do you mean by recoverable amount? අපි යාමන කතා කරද්දී කතා කරා recoverable amount. LKS 38 අමතක කරන් ආයෙ LKS 38 බලන්න කොහොමද exam එකේ නම. So you need to give me 2 minutes. So recoverable amount, right? So when discontinuing non-current asset held for sale classification, if we reverse our decision, then we need to know these two figures. What is the carrying amount if the asset was never classified as non-current asset held for sale, and what is the recoverable amount, right? Recoverable amount. Assume it is 900. Assume it is 900. So we need to consider the lower of this value. Lower of this value, right? That is 850. That is 850. එතකොට මේ වෙනකම් පොත්වල තියෙන්නේ මේ අගය. දැන් අපි පොත්වලට කීයක් ගන්න යනවද? As machines කියලා අපි ආයෙ ගන්න යනවා කීයක්ද? Right? The lower of these two, that is 850. So again, now we have a difference. දැනට පොත්වල තියෙන 820යි. අපි දැන් ඒක 850ක් කරගන්න ඕන. How can we treat for this difference? මේ difference එකට කොහොමද treat කරන්නේ? That difference, right? That difference we need to charge to PNA. Difference we need to charge to PNA. So I will erase this part. If you want, you can take a note. Right? I'm going to erase this part. Asset එකක් ගත්තා. අවුරුද්දකට පස්සේ ඒක නම් current asset held for sale කියලා තුන ගත්තා. මාස 6ක් ගියාට පස්සේ අපේ decision එක reverse කරා. එතකොට කොහොමද අඳුනගන්නේ? If we discontinued non-current asset held for sale classification, then how can we recognize at what amount? So this provides you the guidance on that. And this standard also addresses this part, discontinued operations. Discontinued operations. Discontinued operations. What do you mean by that? Discontinued operations. That means significant component of the entity. Significant component of an entity is held for sale or trade. Significant component of an entity is held for sale or trade. So what is this component? This component can be a business line. Can be a business line. Can be a business line. They can withdraw a business line. අපි baby items සඳහා දීටි අපි business එක decision එකක් ගන්නවා, company එක decision එකක් ගන්නවා, අපි තවදුරටත් baby items හදන්නේ නැහැ. business line එකක් withdraw කරා, discontinue කරා. Right? It can be in that nature. Discontinue of a business line, a significant component. Right? අපි ඒක විකුණලා දානවා. Totally, we are not going to operate anymore in this particular business line. Right? We are not going to engage in baby items anymore. So we are going to discontinue that operation. We are going to sell, right? We are going to sell that particular business line. Or else, it can be a geographical location. Geographical location. අපේ branches තියෙනව රටවටේ. අපි නුවර තියෙන branch එක වහනවා. නුවර branch එකේ operations අපේ හරියට වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒක නිසා නුවර තියෙන branch එක අපි discontinue කරනවා. Geographical location. Geographical location. එහෙම නැත්නම් අපි රටවල් කිහිපයක අපේ operations කරනවා. අපි බංග්ලාදේශ වල යන operations නවත්තනවා. Discontinue based on the geographical location. Right? Geographical location. Right? So in such situations, when we discontinue operations, right? When we discontinue a significant component of our entity, right? If we keep a significant component of an entity held, right? We keep it for sale, then we need to, right, make comprehensive disclosures on that. You know, in detail, we need to provide information on that. Significant එක ඇයි අපි comprehensive in detail ඉස්සර දෙන්න ඕනේ. ඒක තීරණ ගන්න පාර්ශ්වයට ගොඩක් වැදගත් information එකක්. අපි ඒක නිසා in detail අපි විස්තර ඒ සම්බන්ධයෙන් සපයන්න own. We need to provide in detail information. Comprehensive disclosure should be made with respect to discontinued operations. Comprehensive disclosure should be made. Right. I'm going to take a numerical example, right? This is SLFRS 5. Right. I'm going to take a numerical example. This is my time bar. It's my time bar. First of January 2019. 1st of January 2019, we have purchased an asset cost of 1,000. Right? We have purchased an asset at a cost of 1,000 rupees. And the useful life of this particular asset is 10 years. මෙන්න මෙදා 1000කට අපි asset එකක් purchase කරනවා. ඒ asset එකේ useful life එක අවුරුදු 10යි. Right. After the end of the first year, it means what? 31st December 2019. 31st December 2019. What should be the carrying amount? What should be the carrying amount? Carrying amount එක කීයද? What should be the carrying amount? Right. If we consider the depreciation for this 1 year, what is the depreciation charge for this 1 year period? January ke dan December 31 වෙනකන් කියලා කියන්නේ අවුරුද්දක් නේ. මේ අවුරුද්දේ depreciation charge එක කීයද? That is 100. So after deducting this depreciation charge, the carrying amount of this asset as at 31st December 2019 is what? 900. Cost minus accumulated depreciation. Right? Cost minus accumulated depreciation. Then on this date, this is 31st December 2020. 31st December 2020. What is the carrying amount as at this date? Again, for this 1 year, the depreciation charge is 100. So then the carrying amount would be 800 rupees. 800 rupees. Right. Here. This is after another 6 months. Right. This is after another 6 months. Assume this is after 6 months means 30th June. 30th June 2021. 30th June 2021. Here on this date, right? Assume we have satisfied those 5 conditions that need to be satisfied in order to be classified as a non-current asset held for sale. Or a non-current asset held for sale kila anduna ganna අවශ්‍ය වෙච්ච conditions පහම අපි මෙන්න මෙදා satisfy කරනවා. Right? Non-current asset held for sale. Non-current asset held for sale කියලා එතකොට අපිට මෙන්න මෙදා ඉඳන් අඳුන ගන්න පුළුවන්. Because we have satisfied those 5 conditions. Assume as such. Right. If it is so, what are the, right? දැන් ඔන්න පළවෙනි පාරට අපි මේක non current asset held for sale කියලා අඳුන ගත්තා. එතකොට initial measurement එකට යන්න ඕන. Initial measurement එක අපි කරේ කොහොමද? How can we do the initial measurement? That is what? Initial measurement, that is the lower of carrying amount and fair value less cost to sell. That is the lower of carrying amount and fair value less cost to sell. What is the carrying amount? What is the carrying amount? For these 6 months, what is the depreciation charge? 50. So the carrying amount as at this date is what? 750. මෙන්න මෙදා වෙද්දී carrying amount එක 750. Right? In the initial measurement, we should measure it at lower of carrying amount and fair value less cost to sell. Right? Fair value less cost to sell. Fair value less cost to sell. Assume the fair value less cost to sell is 820. Fair value less cost to sell is 820. Right? 820. 820. Now, do we need to pass any entry here? Special entry here? දෙදස් විසියකේ ජූනි 30 වෙද්දී මේක non current asset held for sale කියන classification එකට එනවා. එතකොට මේක PPE වලින් ගැලවිලා වෙනම line item එකක් විදියට අපේ balance sheet එකට එනවා කොහොමද? Non current asset held for sale. What is the value? That is the lower of these two, lower of the carrying amount and fair value less cost to sell. What is the lower value? 750. 750. Right? Was there any difference? Machine කියන account එකේ තිබ්බේ 750යි. දැන් අපි non current asset held for sale කියලා අඳුන ගන්න ඕන. ඒ අඳුන ගන්න value එක කීයද? මේ දෙකෙන් වඩා අඩු වගේ කීයද? 750යි. මෙයා debit වෙන්නේ කවුරු credit වෙලාද? මෙතන credit වෙලා. එතකොට මේ account එක cancel වෙනවා. මෙයා 750ක් debit. Right? Do we need to charge anything to the PNL? PNL එකට charge කරන්න ඕනද සතයක්වත්? නෑ. No need. Right? So if the fair value less cost to sell is greater than our carrying amount, we need not to charge anything, right? Any amount to our PNL. අපේ ඔය classification එකට එන දවස වෙද්දී, classification එක කරන දවස වෙද්දී fair value less cost to sell එක carrying amount එකට වඩා වැඩි නම් කීයක්වත් PNL එකට charge වෙන්නේ නැහැ. කීයක්වත් PNL එකට charge වෙන්නේ නැහැ. But what if this value, fair value less cost to sell, is 720? මෙයා 720ක් වුණොත් මොකද්ද කරන්නේ? What we need to do? What we need to do? Right? What we need to do? Then there is a difference. Then there is a difference. Right? That if what is the difference? 30. That 30 we need to charge into PNL. මෙදාට අපි financial statements හැදුවතින් කොහොමද වෙන්න ඕන? If we prepare financial statements for this period, how we should be? In our statement of profit and loss, right, there should be an expense, right? Expense, or we should debit 30 here. Should debit 30 here. Reclassification of the classification of non-current assets held for sale. ඔන්න P&L එක debit කරා 30. Balance sheet එකේ කොහොමද පෙන්නන්න නැත්තේ? What about the balance sheet? What about the balance sheet or statement of financial position? What about this one? under non-current assets current assets වෙන් වෙන තැන මෙන්න මේ හරිය සාමාන්‍යයෙන් අපි යටින්ම ලියන්නේ non-current asset held for sale කියලා කීයක් පෙන්වන්න ඕනද lower of these two what is the lower value 720 right T account එක කොහොමද දෙන්නේ asset held for sale asset held for sale the brought forward balance is 750 but now we need to recognize it as what it at the lower of fair value less cost to sell and carrying amount so we need to identify it as recognize this account balance at 720 carry it down brought forward balance should be 720 so this difference of 30 we need to charge to PN that is what we have here at the end of the period this is what will reflect in our balance sheet 720 Okay. Then, after another 6 months, it means 31st December 2021. 31st December 2021. So this is what? My initial measurement. This is initial measurement. Now I am coming to what? Subsequent measurement. Now I am coming to subsequent measurement. How we should done the subsequent measurement? That is what? Lower of the original carrying amount and fair value less cost to sell. Lower of the original carrying amount and fair value less cost to sell. Right. Here, I will consider separate different situations here. The first situation, assume, right? Assume the fair value less cost to sell, as 600, Assume fair value less cost to sell as 600. Then what we need to do here? This is the asset held for sale. What is the brought forward balance? Initially we measured it at what value? 720. This is the brought forward balance. When it comes to subsequent measurement, we should measure it at what? One value you got the measure කරන්න. What? At what value? Right. At lower of original carrying amount and fair value less cost to sell. Right. Fair value less cost to sell is 600. What is the original carrying amount? Original carrying amount එක කීයද? මෙදා වෙද්දි. මෙදා කියලා කියන්නේ අවුරුදු කීයකට පස්සේද? 2019, 2020, 2021. After 3 years. So what is the original carrying amount? What is the original carrying amount? That is 700. That is 700. So we need to consider the lower of these two. Lower of these two, what is the lower value? 600. 600. We need to measure it at, like, the brought forward balance for the next period should be what? 600. It means the carried down balance here should be 600. What we need to do with respect to this 120? Make us here with this is a loss. Loss we need to charge to the PNA. If there is a loss, we need to charge it to the PNA. That is the first scenario. That is the first scenario. Then assume, right? I will consider it here. Assume the second scenario. Now, the fair value less cost to sell. Fair value less cost to sell. Right? Fair value less cost to sell is fair value less cost to sell is, let's say, 800. Then how it should be? This is the asset held for sale. Brought forward balance is 720. 720 කියන්නේ මෙන්න මෙතනින් ආපු value. Initial measurement එකකින් ආපු value එක. Depreciate කරනවද? For this period, do we need to depreciate? For this period, for these 6 months, do we need to depreciate? Once we classified it as a non-current asset held for sale, we are not going to depreciate. මේ classification එකට ආවට පස්සේ අපි තව දුරටත් මොකක් කරන්න යන්නේ නැද්ද? Depreciate කරන්න යන්නේ, right? So as at this date also, the asset held for sale balance would be 720, right? When it comes to subsequent measurement, we need to measure it at lower of original carrying amount and fair value less cost to sell. What is the lower amount? What is the lower amount? That is 700. That is 700. Right. Subsequent measurement එකට වෙද්දී අපි හැමතිස්සෙම compare කරන්නේ මේ දෙන්න. Original carrying amount එක කීයද? Fair value less cost to sell එක කීයද? මේ දෙකෙන් වැඩි වගේද අඩු වගේද අපි ගන්න? Lower value, අඩු වගේ 700යි. එහෙනම් the brought forward balance should be 700. Yeah, carried down balance should be 700. So this 20 we need to charge to where? We need to charge to the PNA. Right? We need to charge to the PNA. Need to charge to the PNA. I will take a third scenario. Right? I will take a third scenario. Assume the fair value less cost to sell. Fair value less cost to sell is 800 again. Fair value less cost to sell is 800. And yes, as per this sum, the original carrying amount should be 700. But let's assume original carrying amount maybe 750. Right? This is the third scenario. Original carrying amount එක 750යි. Fair value less cost to sell එක 800යි. So how can we account for this one then? How can we account for this one? Here, asset held for sale. There is a brought forward balance from the initial measurement 720. Now the brought forward balance for the next period should be what? The subsequent measurement should be what? Lower of original carrying amount and the fair value less cost to sell. What is the lower value? 750, 750, right? 750, carried down balance 750. So what is the amount now? What should be the amount? අපි PNL එකෙන් debit කරනවද PNL එක credit කරන්න වෙලාද? අපිට මොකද කරන්න වෙලා තියෙන්නේ? PNL එක credit කරන්න වෙලා. Right? PNL එක credit කරන්න වෙලා. ඒ කියන්නේ අපිට gain එකක් ඇවිල්ලා. කීයකද? කීයකද? 30. Can we recognize all that 30? ඒ 30ම අඳුන ගන්න පුළුවන්ද? පුළුවන්. ඇයි? අපි expenses අඳුනගෙන තියෙන්නේ 30ක විතරයි. ඒ වෙනකන් අපිට gains අඳුන ගන්න පුළුවන්. So we can credit the 30 to our PNL account. PNL එකට 30ක් අපි කලින් අඳුනගත්ත loss එකේ උපරිමය වෙනකන් අපිට PNL එකට credit කරන්න පුළුවන්. When it comes to the subsequent measurement. That is why I have mentioned restricted gain to previous loss identified. So the previous loss identified is 30. Therefore, right, up to that extent we can credit to the PNL when it comes to subsequent measurements. I will take one more scenario here. Right. Fourth scenario. Write it here. Fourth scenario. Fair value less cost to sell. Right. Fair value less cost to sell. Assume it is 800. Fair value less cost to sell is 800. Again, I am going to change the original carrying amount. Original carrying amount is, assume original carrying amount is 780. 780. Then what will happen? In our accounts, this is the asset held for sale. At the initial measurement, we have identified the value to be 720. 720. Right. Now, what is the lower of these two? In subsequent measurement, we need to measure it at the lower of original carrying amount and fair value less cost to sell. What is the lower amount? 780. 780. Now, 720 780ක් වෙලා. හැබැයි අපිට ඔක 780ටම පෙන්වන්න බෑ. ඇයි? අපි කලින් අඳුනගෙන තියෙන loss එක. Here we have a gain of 80 years, that is true. But when it comes to subsequent measurement, that is why I specifically mentioned that the gain should be restricted to the previously loss identified. Gain should be restricted to the previous loss identified. 60ක් තිබ්බ කියලා 60ම ගෙඩිය පිටින් ක්‍රෙඩිට් කරන්න බෑ. ඇයි? අපි previously identify කරන් තියෙන loss එක 30ක් විතරයි. එහෙනම් අපිට උපරිම අරන් යන්න පුළුවන් 30ක් විතරයි. Right? This should be limited. This is restricted. This should be restricted. If there is a gain should be restricted to the previous loss identified. Therefore, the brought forward balance for the next period should be 750. So I have used different colors to bring up different examples, right? To bring up different examples, different scenarios. So this example covers the initial measurement as well as the subsequent measurement. Right? How we need to account when it comes to initial measurement and also when it comes to subsequent measurement under different circumstances.